Hello everyone, in today's video I will show you what do I do as a machine learning engineer. It's not a vlog or day of life type of content. Instead, I will walk you through a very concrete task that I just finished lately so that you can have a better understanding of what it feels like working in the technical side of this job. With that being said, there are many non-technical work involved in this role, which hopefully I can explain more in the future. But in today's video, I want to show you the very common process where you pick up a machine learning task and how to solve it to deliver to your customer. If you are interested in becoming a machine learning engineer, but you don't have the degree or you don't have any experience, I hope you can find this video helpful. Also find the gap between what you expected this job to be and what the job actually is. So there will be three parts of today's content. The first one is what is a task itself. And the second is what are the challenges I faced during this process. And the third one is what are the lessons, like without everything I learned through this ticket, how I can do better next time. First, what is a task? So this is quite a small ticket. So first, before I explain what the task is, so in a team, we have team process. So usually, because we are not all emergent service, so we follow agile process, which means we have a stand up every day morning to every day update to the team. What did you do yesterday? What are you gonna do today? And before, usually on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, we have grooming sessions to estimate ticket and assign tickets each sprint to every teammate. So for the ticket I'm going to talk about today is I forgot, I think it's 2 or 3 points, very small ticket. So small in the sense it doesn't have much complexity. When we think about the complexity of a ticket, which usually means it involves a lot of repo or services or what's that called, or just the packages, because when they involve a lot of factors there, it's harder to test. That's on the code level. And another factor we consider is the human process, the team, if this ticket involves across team or inside a team. So this is almost just our team, but we do have testing or our customers from outside the team. So that's why it's a small ticket. So the ticket itself usually have a story requirement, why you do something, what you are doing, and how essay or test, how we know it is successfully implemented. So I'm not going to talk all of them. The ticket itself is to enable EFA inside a AWS security group so that the researcher can run SMDDP. So EFA is, I think it's Elastic Fabric Adapter. So it's a hardware level thing that if you enable it, the communication between your hosts can happen faster. So that helps distributed training. And this is security group, which is you can think it as a service, as an interface you can attach to different services. For example, it can be EC2, it can be VPC. In my case, it's attaching to a virtual private cloud VPC. It usually defines inbound, outbound rule, so that you can basically control the traffic to reach or go out from the service that attached to this security group. And also, by the way, this is exam point to usually it is compared to ACL, access control list. I think you can look it up. They have a difference. So SMDDP is SageMaker. DDP is distributed data parallel. So right off the bat, I have several questions to ask. We have many environment or stacks. Which security group in this ticket refers to for our customers training job. So that is more of a matter like I need to talk to our internal customers to figure out what is the context, but also some teammate who have more context on this can quickly point me where this part is implemented inside our infrastructure, because this is like lower level stuff, not necessarily exposed to our customers, so they may not know. So that's the first question. The second question is how to enable EFA. So inside the ticket, quickly there is a AWS doc, but later I realized there is an issue in that doc. I will explain later. For this ticket, what is the testing criteria? How would I know I have implemented everything correctly? Because it is possible I followed the doc, I implemented on the correct security group, but for some reason, when the customer took over the completed ticket, they are not satisfied. So that's 3 questions I need to get clarified once I took over this ticket. So as I explained, the overall implementation is quite simple. I just need to change one service at one place. However, there are several challenges I encountered along the way. First, inside the ticket, there is AWS doc for how to enable EFA in console. However, our implementation is not using console. Like almost all tech companies, you will not implementing things in console because it's not reproducible, it's hard to trace, it's hard to debug. Everything is implemented as code. No, I think that's not I think infrastructure as code. Like for example, like a famous example is Terraform, which is a third-party tool for infrastructure as code, but Amazon use a different internal service. I'm not going to explain here, but how to translate this AWS doc into our internal code, because it's not a one-to-one mapping. So I need some trial and error to see how to translate a change inside the console to a change inside our internal code. That's the first challenge I had. And the second challenge is, which I didn't realize before, is security group. Like this is an object inside our code, but when specifically to implement EFA, it has a self-referential condition. Basically, it like when you implement the inbound, outbound, and when the inbound, outbound is pointing back to the security group itself, you cannot implement as what we usually do. You have to define those rules as a separate object, which I did not realize before, and that caused error. And the third one is after I did everything, and finally, like first we have a long deployment pipeline, and finally we pushed to development environment for we call like basically a testing process before you finally push to prod. It did cause error, and it's a very, very weird error that I consulted several seniors, and we didn't figure out why that error can be triggered. So instead of fixing this error, we decided to implement in a different way. Another challenge I didn't expect is more like a maintenance cost is, as I mentioned here, this deployment is relatively long compared to other services I worked with. So we have many stages for this stack, and also it has many packages. So it happens to I have another 2 teammates, they are also testing out something. So basically we are constantly pushing out changes to the same environment, and we just constantly stepping on each other's toes, constantly need to communicate over the Slack and make sure we are not overwriting each other's change to make sure the testing is happening. And the very last challenge is, so every time when I implement the security group, the infrastructure will generate a new ID. However, this information is not directly updated in our infrastructure, but the code written looked like it will be updated, but it was not. So that took me a bit to figure out why sometimes it's not working. So that's how much detail I can go on this ticket. The very last part I want to talk about are the lessons I learned from this ticket. So the first thing is when that, like in the dev environment deployment happened, and we had this very bizarre error that we basically, because how like there are so many factors in that environment, it's very hard to reproduce the error then to further root cause. Like usually you have an RCA to root cause. This is root cause analysis. Because of that, our senior basically suggested instead of trying to fix the error, let's try a different implementation. I'm not going to explain the detail of another implementation, but like this overall logic, I just didn't think. When I hit a wall, I'm trying to fix that wall rather than let's try a different route. So that's my first lesson. The second lesson is, although I sort of have this intuition that I will have some difficulties translating an AWS doc instruction into our internal code, I didn't expect this process to be expensive, so I started implementing inside the code directly, which slowed me down when the code has error. Instead, I should have tested it inside the console to make sure, like, because AWS doc is written for general public and the specific environment for our internal is different, I should have tested in the cheapest way before trying to translate it into internal service. Like if there is anything uncertain, testing it early and cheap as much as possible. The third lesson is I mentioned that the whole deployment pipeline is sort of a bottleneck as a whole process because we need to go through so many tests and different teammates can all working on the same environment. So this whole testing and pushing process is very slow, although it's safer. But if I do this over again, I will first invest. We do have an internal tool that allow you to skip the testing process and push into an each stack have different region, have like sub environment. We could have tested differently to make it cheaper. Maybe I should include this at all. So the last one is, I was expecting this to be like 2 points small tickets, but I ended up spend probably 2 to 3 weeks on this. While I have other tickets working on at the same time, but this is way longer than the expected time because 2 days means 2 points means like I'm supposed to spend 2 days on this whole ticket, but because of like this pipeline slowdown, this unexpected error, and when each time I recode everything and there are moving factors here. That's the overall content of today's video. This specific task probably not very useful for your job interview or whatever you are trying to do. I just want to give you a sense of what is the specific work look like. So let me know if this is helpful.